Hi there, I'm recording this on October 29th, 2025, and that means two things. An anecdote is not a fact is not data, and data is not a conclusion. But this is an anecdote I'm going to use for my entire career. And that is that the Louvre was robbed of the Second Empire's crown jewels at 9:30 in the morning. I'm never letting that go. Especially because we're going to be talking about crime in a few minutes. But before we do that, I have to mention that this is the Darkness News Update, and it is brought to you by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, home of the only lighting professionals that really care about making darkness conservation work at the street level. You can visit nailed.org for more. But let's get into the news because we have a great bit of research from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, as they switched their streetlights from HPS to LED. And a group of researchers found that, yes, actually, switching to LED, brighter, whiter sources, dropped crime in some neighborhoods. Street crime in the area dropped as much as 15%. With a 21% drop in gun violence. But the interesting thing about all this is that alongside crime data, the research team were surveying residents and talking about how their behaviors were changing as the lights came online. They talked to business owners about how the lighting changed how people approached their businesses after dark. And the other thing is that this team also ran a study a few years earlier about how a litter pickup program, literally guys, city employees picking up trash out of the gutters and the sidewalks, and they found that crime dropped then too. So the issue may not actually be about visibility. It's about care. We have a case for broken windows policing that isn't about the policing. It's actually about the windows. And I'm very curious to see how this develops. Speaking of crime, there is a neighborhood in Fort Lauderdale called Melrose Park. They've been without street lighting at all, zero street lights, for decades. Currently, City Council in Fort Lauderdale wants to add 555 lights to the neighborhood, and locals don't want it. They don't want the taxes, they don't want the traffic, and they don't want the possibility of crime being facilitated by the fact that there's now light. There's a lot of kinds of crime, obviously. They're talking about, loitering, potential drug deals, other things. And this is not the first time this neighborhood association has done this. 10 years ago, the city wanted to add 1,000 street lamps to the space, and they won then. So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep an eye on this. All right, back to the more typical format. Let's start with the research side of things because we have a new study from Hefei that shows that infrared and near-infrared light boosts your dopamine. That's right. These are researchers using PC LEDs that ran 710 and 830 nanometers, so pretty deep on the red side of things, and they found that they did activate neurotransmitters for dopamine fairly consistently, which means that this could be a treatment for myopia, a number of neurodegenerative diseases. It might also just be nice. And it might also explain why lighting a candle makes you feel better, even though, it's just lighting a candle, right? We have a new cohort study published in JAMA that links Allen, light at night, with cardiovascular disease. This study was able to balance satellite data with personal light meters, and they tracked nighttime exposure to subjects over 40, and they found that as light increased, the risk of cardiovascular disease, which is to say heart attack, heart disease, and stroke all rose at the same rate light rose. We have a new study that shows that circadian disruption has been linked with neurodegenerative diseases. Specifically, this study tracked context and cell-dependent expressions alongside the glial gland function in Alzheimer's and aging minds. We have a new small study. 81 adults were asked to nap, and they determined that naps are good for you. They were asked to snooze for 9 minutes, and they were given a digit symbol substitution test as well as tests for sleepiness and fatigue. And it turns out that the performance on all metrics before and after the nap were better. So I don't know. Maybe we all just need a little siesta. Maybe we all need that. Maybe that's what we need. Night shifts continue to be bad, not just for women, but their children. The University of Sao Paulo has observed that activity and sleep cycles of both parents who work the night shift and their children are adversely affected by the shift work. This is a generational issue, apparently. We have a new method from the University of Alabama at Birmingham to assess sleep and circadian rhythms in cardiovascular research. They are trying to improve patient care with new guidelines and for caregivers in hospital settings. We have a new non-invasive alternative to post-operative ganglion blocks. So usually when you go in for a mastectomy, it is common to actually inject something that blocks your ganglion cells so that you can rest better. But this new study has determined that a small polarized light burst at the same time you would normally give an injection is better overall. We have a new study from Stanford University that shows that glare can be reduced with color, with lenses. It doesn't change the brightness. This is an LED. The Stanford team had done an LED glare study that just used filters, and now they're doing the same study again with sunlight, and they found that yes, if you use green, blue, or neutral lenses, even neutral lenses, they cut the subjective glare metric compared to red lenses, which could be something that goes ahead going forward. We have the University of California in Fresno charting sleep inequality alongside other social inequalities. This is based on self-reported sleep loss, but they are also tracking other social factors like education, race, income, substance use, as well as employment status and commute time. And what they actually found is that the real leading cause of sleep loss in these communities is the length of commute and their employment status. So if you're talking about gig workers or part-timers, they are having worse time than other people who even live in the same neighborhood. We have a new meta-study that shows that circadian eating, not even nutrition, is good for your weight. This meta-study shows that if you time your eating, and I mean alongside your circadian rhythm, this is not an endorsement of intermittent fasting. This is just like, hey, if you time your calorie intake with your circadian rhythm, you will lose weight even if you don't run a calorie deficit. Your eating habits are also linked with your seasonal rhythms. Guess what? We are going into winter, and believe it or not, going into winter, you just crave fattier, calorie-rich food, and that kicks into high gear. And you can also maybe trick yourself into thinking it's summer if you mess around with your lighting and mess around with your fat intake. Circadian rhythm has been linked with the clock gene PER1 in mice. Penn State has found a link to circadian rhythm and PR1. PER1 is also linked with memory. So this is to say that if you misalign your circadian rhythm, your memory will suffer, even if you're otherwise healthy. University of Xinghua has identified a nanoparticle related to sleep deprivation and cognitive deficits in rats, which means that we might actually have a treatment for that. Like that nanoparticle can be replicated artificially, and we can give that to people who are low on sleep. We also have a study that shows that continuous dark exposure hurts the development of Leydig cells in rats, which means their puberty, for males at least, is delayed because they aren't getting enough night and light during the day. Speaking of rats, the Angoni Vley rat is perhaps more behaviorally flexible in terms of temporality than previously believed, because reducing the amount of light they get in the day changes their activity cycle, which may mean that they're just they may benefit from light pollution in a way that isn't great because rats spread diseases. Alan, light at night, boosts mosquito activity. Specifically, the egg-laying habits and larval growth of species associated with yellow fever are more common in well-lit areas. The Design Lights Consortium has launched Luna 2, or will launch Luna 2 in 2 days. The light usage for night applications requirement version 2 goes ahead on November 1st, which means that any lighting fixture certified under Luna 1 has already been delisted. That started on the 1st of October. We have a new architecture contest for a home with no lighting. This is the 4th year that the Home of Shadows competition is running, and designers are challenged to create a home that only uses daylight, and the 4 prizes are split across £10,000. That's right, £10,000 split 4 ways if your design goes well. You can submit if you've got one, or you can just wait around with me to see who wins. That'll be something we can do. On the U.S.-Mexico border, the Department of Homeland Security has secured $5 billion in wall-building funds. Projects are now expanding out of Texas into Arizona and California, with stadium lighting and connected surveillance tech going ahead as planned. The DHS has waived procurement rules for that infrastructure, which is to say that they don't necessarily have to do environmental assessments, they don't necessarily have to go through vetting processes for contractors, and they don't have to be subject to Build American, Buy American rules as they do this. Part of that plan it also includes a federal judge pausing a lawsuit that would have paused construction on the border wall in Arizona. Because of the shutdown, they're just going to let that go through. Also, there's going to be more lighting on the Rio Grande River. The big river. That's what I just said. I'm sorry. But yeah, on the river itself in Texas, they are planning buoys to block transit by swimmers, and again, more lighting to, again, block transit by swimmers. The environmental community continues to voice its objections to all the lights and all the interventions, because as much as people try to cross the border to the U.S., animals do too, and butterflies don't need visas. And that's all I have to say about that for now. In the UK, the Mayor of London is calling for more health support for workers that work at night. He's calling for additional health checks from the NHS and changes to employment law that would limit the number of consecutive night shifts anyone can work. We'll see if that follows through. We have a group of bat advocates calling out a proposed planning bill in the UK. The Restoration Fund model that Labour is trying to push through is functionally a fee-for-destruction model that will not necessarily lead to restorations anywhere else. In Basingstoke in the UK, a special needs school there is a special needs school and is in a conservation area, and they're swapping out all of their lighting to full cutoff wall packs so that they can respect the local bat population. In Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, the Artis Zoo has switched out all of their lighting and become the EU's first urban night sky place per Dark Sky International. This is the city's first no-light district. In Phoenix, Arizona, the Dark Sky Discovery Center has installed their telescope. This is an ongoing project. They have just added a 27.5-inch optical telescope, which will make it the biggest telescope in the Phoenix metro area. In Pennsylvania, they observed their 5th Lights Out week. This started out as an advocacy campaign for bird migration season, but is leading to more education overall in the field of night conservation. On the Isle of Man, again back to the UK, Port Erin is flipping all of their street lighting to dark sky compliant LED options, which is 294 posts that'll be full cutoff, warm color temperature, low brightness, minimum brightness. In Texas, the town of Midlothian is debating monument sign brightness, which means that their monuments will now be 60% dimmed below manufacturer spec near residential neighborhoods. In Utah, the town of Torrey has hosted their Citizen Science Night Sky Brightness event. They do this twice a year. This is in partnership with the Entrada Institute and the Capitol Reef National Park. Citizens are asked to track the brightness of certain constellations or the visibility of certain constellations to help them understand how bright the area is and what they can do to change that. So in China, the Taihang Conservation Area has charted light pollution from nearby cities, noting that Xinjiang City's lights aren't an effect on them right now. They are 68 kilometers away, but if anything changes in the city, that could become an issue, and they are going to be pushing the regional government to limit light pollution from that area. In California, the town of Humboldt has reported on changes since they implemented their new lighting ordinances. The actual lighting ordinance only kicked in August, but they are already seeing improvements and they're already happy with it. The town of Easton, Pennsylvania is debating a new darkness ordinance, with City Council hearing from a rep from the Easton Environmental Advisory Council talking about limiting uplight and limiting glare. In Arizona, the Cochise County Authority has approved new campgrounds despite lighting bylaws. They have issued a variance. This was after a 3-hour meeting about not just lighting, but also water use and noise, and they ended up going in favor of the developer. In Lawrence, Missouri, the Bird Alliance is opposing a new development at the Baker Wetlands. This is a large set of, this is a housing development. This will have a shopping center. This will have a golf course. This will have tennis courts. It's a lot of development very quickly, and it's right next to a bird habitat, and they'd really like it if there were lighting rules that protected that habitat. In New Mexico, the town of Taos is pushing for dark sky status, with the council meeting on potential lighting ordinances. In Prince Edward County, Ontario, they are moving to secure darkness over the South Shore. That is part of a partnership with the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada in changing lighting rules for the region. In Georgia, 12 counties have pushed back on lighting and noise from data centers. The rules are a bit varied and they may not be super effective, but we are seeing, again, that neighborhood effect, that idea that once one county, one region, one municipality institutes a lighting rule, we see them spread. We see those rules spread, and we see it pushing back on data centers, which don't employ a lot of people, but do seem to need a lot of lighting for some reason. In the lawsuit world, in the world of lawsuits, we have a new zoning lawsuit going ahead in the Kearsarge Lighting Precinct of California. This is a B&B and wedding venue that is pushing against the special lighting district so that they can have more nighttime events, and that has been in court off and on for the full year. The Utah Supreme Court has paused construction on a LDS temple in Haber Valley, the Wasatch Back County, and the LDS, the Latter-day Saints, are going ahead with an appeal. In Wisconsin, the Shalom Wildlife Zoo has been sued by its neighbors over lighting. This is a private zoo in Washington County, and their neighbors are concerned about the level of brightness that they are using at night. And probably not all that great for the zoo animals, but we will see how that goes. We have a new petition for LED headlight regulation in the U.S. Change.org remains the Yelp of extra-electoral political engagement. The European Space Agency has announced a new Space Environment Health Index. This new metric will sound the alarm over the presence of junk in low orbit, and the alarms are already sounding. It's already bad. Relatedly, we have a new paper from the IEEE saying that we may already be experiencing the Kessler shock. The Kessler shock, or the Kessler syndrome, was proposed by Don Kessler, who noted that as we put more things in orbit, that number of things in orbit can only multiply as they break and collide into each other and create more debris. And we may already have to deal with a disaster mode of small things hitting each other way up there, limiting our options for what we can do in space further on. Also, astronomers are protesting Reflect Orbital's plan to put 4,000 mirrors in orbit. Reflect Orbital wants to use mirrors to reflect light down back to the Earth, either for agricultural needs or for solar power generation or for anything related to, say, even emergencies. But astronomers are like, actually, that's more objects in space. And also, the light pollution would play havoc with the natural world. And John Barentine and Robert Massey are calling this whole thing terrible. And it is the day before Halloween when this comes out, and you can go to darksky.org and celebrate the darkness with their pumpkin templates. These are printable objects. These are things you can print out. You can follow them along. You can cut out your jack-o'-lanterns and show off your pride about bats and dark skies. And they're fun. They're fun. We're closing out on fun today because we've dealt with some heavy topics otherwise. I've been Scott Wachter. I want to thank you for your time, your attention. If you feel like donating to the Soft Lights Foundation, that's great. You can go to restoringdarkness.com and find the link there. You can also just support the show with a review or a recommendation. I will catch you in 2 weeks. Otherwise, take care of yourself.